In 1974, an up-and-coming local author living in Boulder, Colorado, decided on a weekend getaway with his wife to the Stanley Hotel on its final open days of the season. While others bid their farewells for a long winter break, the author and his wife were consumed by the sounds of eerie solitude found in the whispering winds of the Rocky Mountains, constantly reminding them that it was their decision to stay. What culminated that night was a wild nightmare that forever changed the author's life. The birth of an idea that turned into a best-selling novel that transformed the horror genre through its storytelling and movie adaptation that set forth a precedent for those to follow. A cultural impact so powerful that it rejuvenated the life of a historic luxurious hotel in despair with a paranormal past. The man's name was Stephen King. In 1903, Freeland Oscar Stanley challenged death and won, forever expanding upon his long list of titles and accolades. Faced with just 6 months to live, diagnosed with a terminal case of tuberculosis, he made the trek from Massachusetts to the Rocky Mountains for recommended fresh air, expecting to die in peace, only to escape fate, find a passion for the great outdoors, and a newfound forever home. In love with Estes Park, Stanley, alongside his wife Flora, decided to transform this little mountain oasis into a bustling resort town that painted the grandeur and Edwardian opulence of East Coast establishments in new rustic Western brushstrokes. Mr. Stanley, deep in his financial resources, found his fortunes in a plethora of commodities. His name was tied to everything, from simplistic children's toys to a multi-million-dollar fortune found in photographic plates, to the co-ownership of Stanley Motor Carriage Company, producer of the famed crowned fastest car of its age, the Stanley Steamer, which reached the top speed of 127 miles per hour. So when it came time to break ground for the foundation of the future Stanley Hotel in 1907, he had no problem funding the construction of a luxurious hotel that one-upped its predecessor, the former Estes Park Hotel, built in 1878 by the Irish baronet, the 4th Earl of Dunraven, Wyndham Thomas Wyndham Quinn. Stanley's determination created a boisterous palace that truly exemplified his born-again attitude that radiated his love for the beautiful area. When it was all said and done, Stanley had created a 140-room colonial revival hotel equipped for a seasonal retreat for the grand total of $500,000. As if the hotel's elegance and the surrounding beautiful views of the great outdoors weren't enough, guests found pleasure in the great number of commodities offered at the time, mainly due in part to the hydroelectric plant also constructed by Mr. Stanley that allowed guests to enjoy the use of electricity, telephones, and modern bathrooms in every room, as well as a fully uniformed staff of maids and cooks. So what then could turn such a place into a paranormal hotspot that it is known as today? Well, much like the Eagles song, Hotel California, it seems that long-term guests of the Stanley Hotel, for lack of better words, have a hard time checking out. One specific event seems to explain the origin of the Stanley Hotel's paranormal activity, and not in the way that is often expected. Instead of some traumatic event that resulted in death, presenting the perfect conditions for a commonly believed paranormal trope, the Stanley is different. It has a scar, and it seems as if it remembers, so it holds on. The event is tied to the infamous Room 217. No, there isn't now and has never been the ghost of a rotting dead woman waiting in the bathtub to seduce bellhops, guests, or Jack Torrance like in Stephen King's The Shining. Instead, a nearly fatal accident that left head chambermaid Mrs. Elizabeth Wilson in a 2-year coma. Mrs. Wilson's near-death experience occurred on June 25, 1911, while reacting to a mass power outage following a local flood. Mr. Stanley, innovative as he was, had planned ahead by installing gas lamps as a secondary source of lighting in such a scenario. What he didn't plan for was what happened next. Mrs. Wilson, well into her duty of lighting each gas lamp, found herself at the center of a perfect condition for a deadly situation. Unbeknownst to her at the time, because of a leak, room 217 had become filled with gas. When she lit a flame, the room was immediately consumed in a massive explosion, with enough force to knock the floor clean from her feet, sending her falling a complete story to the first floor, and luckily enough, away from the room that was set ablaze. Although Mrs. Wilson was safe and sound from the burning room, she did find herself in a dire situation. A combination of the blast and her fall left her in a comatose state until 1913. Upon recovery, she returned to work at the Stanley Hotel, where she remained until retirement in 1950, passing away shortly after. So, why is room 217 so infamous, capable of scaring the tracks off the likes of Stephen King and Jim Carrey? Well, following her death, guests and employees of the Stanley Hotel have claimed to have witnessed her ghost along with other supporting cast of the original Stanley Hotel. But how? If Mrs. Wilson did not die in the hotel, how is her alleged ghost present? Many have theorized that it's not just negative events that keep spirits lingering long after they are gone. Sometimes, it's the experience. Some spirits cling to the places that they were the happiest during their earthly stay, returning to navigate life after death. Hence, the ghost of Mrs. Wilson and Mr. and Mrs. Stanley. Other paranormal investigators point out that because the Stanley sits atop a massive underground cave system, ripe with high concentration of limestone and quartz, it has been both a catalyst for paranormal activity and a prison. So, what exactly has been happening in room 217 that has earned it a spot as one of the most iconic haunted rooms in the world? When Stephen King and his wife Tabitha paid the Stanley Hotel a visit in 1974, he didn't expect to have an experience that would forever change the landscape of horror fiction. What he walked away with was a resonating nightmare that sparked innovation that formed into his third novel, The Shining. Whether or not his novel created a tulpa effect for paranormal activity is up for debate. What is undoubtedly known is that this chance stay not only benefited the up-and-coming author, but rejuvenated a dying hotel set for demolition following decades of despair. Stephen King's experience is as follows. Taking a break from writing The Stand, a post-apocalyptic novel taking place after a devastating pandemic wiped out nearly all of Earth's population caused by a superflu known as Captain Trips, King and his wife stayed at the hotel on its final open day of the season. After experiencing all the hotel had to offer, they retired to room 217 for the night. The moans, creaks, and whispering winds lulled King into a deep, lucid, horrifying dream. He dreamed of his son Joe being chased by a large animated fire hose that moved with all the viciousness of a predatory, constricting snake. As Joe ran for his life down the hallway of the hotel, screaming to be saved, the fire hose snake stayed hot on his trail until eventually he had him cornered and at his mercy. Not able to intervene, King watched his son become consumed whole, causing him to wake in a panic cold sweat. Understandably, unable to sleep afterwards, King calmed his nerves with a cigarette by the window, looking into the darkness of a Colorado Rocky Mountain night as the seeds of The Shining began to sprout. Like Stephen King, actor Jim Carrey also had quite the experience in room 217, deciding to book the room for a stay in the 1990s during the filming of his movie Dumb and Dumber. Inspired to stay because of Stephen King's and other alleged experiences, it seems that Jim got his money's worth. Little is known as to what he actually experienced during his stay, but what is known is that it was bad enough that he only lasted 3 hours into the night, becoming so spooked that he ran from the hotel, half naked, into the middle of the night. Beyond celebrity experiences in room 217, there are endless reports by guests and staff. Their accounts are similar and seemingly subtle, but definitely to the tune of Mrs. Wilson or a spirit from her era. Visitors of the room have stated that personal items left out are neatly organized and put away, as well as lights turning on and off by themselves. Sounds more helpful than treacherous to me. A personal maid who cleans up after you from beyond the grave. However, encounters turn more invasive for unmarried couples who have decided to spend the night together. Reports made by these couples state that they felt an icy force wedged between them while they slept, a testament to the time of Mrs. Wilson and the idea of the old-fashioned practice of no funny business before marriage. Room 217 doesn't stand alone as the only haunted room at the Stanley Hotel, just as Mrs. Wilson doesn't serve as its only ghost. Here are a few more of the hotel's most active rooms, as well as some other familiar ghostly inhabitants that have led television shows, documentarians, podcasters, and ghost hunters on a quest for the truth. The Vortex, the nickname given to the hotel's main lobby staircase that connects the first floor to the second floor, has been recognized as a portal of spiritual energy. Some say that this is another catalyst for paranormal activity because spirits have found themselves stuck in a spiritual traffic jam. From all over the world, psychic mediums and paranormal investigators are drawn by their own interests. Mediums to decipher the moving energy they can feel, while paranormal investigators search for any wild chance of proof from orbs to poltergeist activity to prove that there is truly something in between. Perhaps the most interesting piece of evidence was captured on a tour of the Stanley Hotel. In it, a picture of a ghostly girl, so clear that it made national news. The concert hall, built by Mr. Stanley for his wife Flora, features a Steinway grand piano gifted to her by her husband on opening day. Like Mrs. Wilson, Flora seems to hang around after her death, playing a song or two upon her prized possession, well after guests have retreated to their rooms for the night. Her most notable concert in recent years happened in 2000, when the room was being renovated. The bar and the billiard rooms are said to be occupied by none other than Mr. Stanley himself. These rooms were some of his most frequented places during his life. The fourth floor features haunted rooms like the infamous Room 217, once an attic space and living quarters for maids and their children, has since been renovated to house guests of the Stanley Hotel. Still, the sound of little feet running down the hallway and echoes of laughter can be heard deep into the night hours. More specifically, the following rooms may have you checking out before you've fully checked in. Room 401 is said to be the creepiest room in all of the hotel. It is occupied by an unfriendly male ghost who has reportedly frisked women inappropriately as they stood in the room's closet. In room 407, guests have experienced an unseen entity tuck them in at night and then sit at the foot of the bed, waiting for them to fall asleep. Lastly, in room 428, guests have seen the ghost of a looming cowboy in all ends of the room. Many believe this ghost is James Nugent, a long-past former Estes Park local known as Rocky Mountain Jim, who played a hand in establishing the original town. So what do you think? Are you willing to spend on average around $450 a night in one of America's proclaimed most haunted hotels? If you do, the possibilities are endless. You might experience a friendly, helpful ghost who only wants to do you a service in tidying up your room while you're asleep or away. However, it may be a life-changing nightmare that forever plants its roots into your future for the better good, like the young up-and-coming author Stephen King, or a treacherous experience that you refuse to fully talk about, sending you running half naked for your life into the dark Colorado night, like Jim Carrey.